So just to kick it off, this is our third quarter 2025 threat research roundup. Title of today's talk: When Worms and Phish Attack, from NPM compromises to backdoored IDE extensions and more. And this is, again, one of our regularly scheduled research roundups where we're going to be taking a look at some of the malicious campaigns, compromised open source repositories, and commercial binaries submitted to ReversingLabs that really fuel our work. So stay tuned, and we're going to get going. Just before we do that, a little bit about ReversingLabs. If you don't know about us as a company, we have been around for more than 15 years. We deliver deep threat intelligence and complete software supply chain visibility to some of the world's largest corporations and enterprises. And our mission goes beyond protecting customers. We have a dedicated threat research team. We got 3 members of them here today with us that is continually analyzing software packages, commercial binaries, and code to uncover and disrupt emerging software supply chain attacks and help make the broader open source ecosystem safer for everyone, and also to help organizations assess both the security of the code, if you're a software producer, that you create, the kind of that final exam before you might send that compiled software binary off to your customers. And on the other side, the end user organization side, assessing the security of the software updates and applications that are being given to you by vendors. And we've seen, obviously, in recent years, threats can lurk in what seem to be completely legitimate signed applications, and those pose a huge risk. So you need visibility into that supply chain, and that's kind of what ReversingLabs does. So today I'm joined by 3 members of our research team who are on the front lines of those investigations, looking at emerging open source attacks, and again, non-open source risks as well. Let me introduce them. We'll start with Lucija. Lucija Valentić is a software threat researcher at ReversingLabs. Lucija, introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about the work you do here on the ReversingLabs team.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lucija Valentić. I'm a threat researcher at ReversingLabs. I've been with ReversingLabs for over 3 years now. And I'm searching for malicious packages on public repositories such as NPM Ruby gems. And when I find something interesting, I make in-depth research about it and a blog about it.
Absolutely. Next up, Karlo Zanki. Karlo is a lead reverse engineer here at ReversingLabs. Karlo, say hi and just tell the attendees a little bit about the work that you do and some of the things that interest you.
Hi, I'm Karlo. I work here at ReversingLabs for more than 6 years now, and my daily tasks include monitoring of open source package repository for different types of threats and creating solutions for detecting those type of threats in automated way. And when we find something really interesting, we here and then write a research blog about it to demonstrate to the community what we found.
Thanks, Karlo. And with Lucija and Karlo is Petar Kurtmandur, reverse engineer here at ReversingLabs. Petar, say hi and let the attendees know what kind of projects you're working on and what interests you here in at ReversingLabs.
Hello, everybody. My name is Petar Kurtmandur. I'm a threat researcher at ReversingLabs, and I've been with them for over 2 years. My main tasks are similar to Lucija and Karlo. I'm monitoring various ecosystems, mainly focusing on NuGet and VS Code extensions.
Great. And all 3 of the, Lucija, Karlo, Petar, all have really interesting discoveries just in the past few months, and we're going to be talking about them. So here's the agenda. We're going to start off with kind of the big story of the quarter, which was the Shai Hulud worm, open source worm, if you can wrap your brain around that. Then we're going to dig down into some of the other supply chain incidents of this quarter. almost all of them, not all of them, but many of them on the NPM platform, also VS Code. We're going to take a look at some of the emerging, well, we're going to take a look at one of the clear trends that we've seen in the last couple of years, which is blockchain and cryptocurrency related tools and applications and infrastructure are a major target of malicious actors, and kind of what some of those attacks have looked like. And then we're going to dig into some of the threats we've seen targeting VS Code. That's a fairly new territory for malicious actors to target. Much more common to see attacks on NPM and Python package index in the past. VS Code is getting more malicious activity, and we'll talk about that. And then, of course, at the end, we're going to talk about some of the best practices, things that you can do to protect yourself and your development organization from these types of supply chain threats, and also some of the resources that ReversingLabs offers to help you protect yourself, free resources and otherwise. So stay tuned, and we'll definitely end on a positive, or at least hopeful note, which is things that you can do practically to just protect yourself. Okay, let's get going. This Shai Hulud. This is the big news of the past month, actually. Shai Hulud, it was a self-replicating worm that spread between packages on the NPM repository, open source repository registry. And Karlo and Lucia, can you talk about this malware? And maybe Karlo, just start with you. Worms are not a new thing. They've been around for decades, but a worm spreading between open source packages, that's kind of new. So could you tell us, first of all, how this got onto your radar, and also how this worm kind of functioned practically? How did it actually replicate across open source packages? Doesn't seem like something you should be able to do.
Yeah, so basically, worms on open source packages are new, as you said. There's an interesting topic. How it all started. It started with compromise of legit NPM packages. Basically, what we observed is that some packages that didn't have new versions for a very long time suddenly got the new versions, which triggered some hardware hunting policies, and that was a sign that we need to look what's happening there. And then suddenly, in a few hours later, new packages containing the same payload started appearing. So basically, when you have one hash appearing in two unrelated packages, it's a sign that this could be related campaigns. You have a campaign starting. Basically, at the time, we took a deeper look at the package content and the malicious payload, which was called bundle.js. Basically, what the malware did, it added a post-install script into package.json in npm, which is a sort of trigger of auto execution upon installation. Basically, you install an npm package, and script defined in post-install script gets executed. In this case, it was bundle.js, and it contained malicious code. The malicious code was quite a big one, so it took some time for us to analyze, but immediately you could spot there were some included shell scripts working something with GitHub workflows. So if you find that in several packages in the same payload, it's obviously something malicious. So basically, we spotted that it was malicious immediately, just needed time to monitor what else does it do. And in the end, we found the most interesting part was that it was self-replicating worm, which again, if you think about it's creating a GitHub repository called Shai Hulud, and that's a sandworm from Dune space. It could have came to our note at earlier time that this could be related to returning capability. So it's basically sometimes things are obvious, but you need time to confirm them.
It's named after a fictional worm. Maybe it's also a worm.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. But of course, who knows, right?
Yeah.
Right. Really interesting. Do we know, Karlo or Lucia, like, so we understand how this spread, via dependencies once it was established on NPM. Do we understand kind of patient zero and how the initial compromise happened? Was it basically just an account takeover, or what do we know?
Yeah, basically, the attacker likely used access tokens stolen in some of the previous campaigns, we believe, from the NX compromise called Singularity Supply Chain Attack, that was also aiming at stealing access tokens for GitHub and similar services and NPM access tokens. We believe that attackers reuse those tokens to seed malware in several packages that they initially compromised, and then through time, by starting new seeds with packages that had some dependence, hoped to make the worm circulate around and end up in more popular packages. In some manner, it succeeded because at some moment, some of the CrowdStrike packages were compromised and some other popular tools. So basically, they put few, let's say, baits. I wouldn't say baits, just initial seeds, and let the story build up itself. And in a day or two, they managed to expand it significantly. And how we managed to track it is by the data exfiltration routes. So basically, what it does, it either exfiltrates data to attacker-controlled webhooks, or by creating new new projects in victims' GitHub repository named Shai Hulud. And basically, you can search GitHub logs or GitHub itself for such packages and projects and find out who has been compromised. We have found several important persons like CEOs, founders of some relatively big companies to fall victims of this attack.
And in total, I think there are around 350 or so packages that were compromised by this. Is that still a number we feel confident with, or could the impact have been bigger than that?
No, I think it's around that number. At some moment, let's say the attack stopped. It was either held by NPM security team preventing that payload being uploaded, or it generally stopped because compromised account removed those malicious versions and new seeds didn't appear. So the attacker likely stole some credentials and at some moment made the decision that, okay, we can stop with this campaign and prepare for something else, and we will use some of the stolen credentials that haven't been annulled or anything like that in the next chapter.
And obviously, as you said, it was spreading because via dependencies. Is there something from a developer standpoint you can do to prevent your own projects, packages from being vulnerable to malware that is leveraging that? Because I think we can probably assume, right, that this isn't the last worm that we're going to see or attempt to do a worm on a platform like this, whether it's NPM or another platform.
Well, the dependency dependency upgrading problem isn't just related to Shai Hulud campaign. We had several, 5 or 6 compromises of very popular and legitimate
We're going to talk
packages
about that, yeah.
in this quarter, and they all had the same spreading vector. There were automated dependency upgrades are something that feeds this type of malware. Open source package repositories are targeted because people have configured auto-updating of open source package dependencies, and that is a big problem for the security of the entire ecosystem. You have, let's say, some level of trust for the popular packages and even those not so popular ones, and you want to automate as much job as you want, and you don't want to track the whole complicated dependency tree that your package depends on, because usually there are, I don't know, statistically, but dozens of total dependency in the dependency tree, and it's hard to track manually and update those dependencies. Most of people configure automatic updates, and unfortunately, it's not just that they trigger pull request openings, so like adding code suggestions, but some of big number of developers goes a step further and performs outdating and auto merging of those changes. So basically, one bot collects information about new versions and opens pull requests, and another bot confirms that per pull request and accepts it and merges it into the code base. So basically, don't have any control about what you are including. You're doing it automatically without previous manual review from security tools.
So as we note here in this slide, there was similarities, seeming connections between the Shai Hulud campaign and an earlier campaign called Singularity, targeting NPM packages. Do we know, and this is a question actually from Michael, do we know that this attack, as well as Singularity, and Michael mentions another one, Ghost Action, are over and that the risk has been mitigated, or could we just be in a kind of quiet period and these threats could reemerge? And Karlo, whoever, yeah.
My opinion is that this is not the last attack we'll see, because not enough significant security changes have been employed into open source package repositories to prevent it from happening again. I think it's just paused for some time before the attackers start a new cycle and new chapter related to that. So this is not the last thing we will see.
Right. And we're going to talk about some of the things that organizations can do in terms of protections. You mentioned here behavioral detection, pipeline monitoring, even as you talked about kind of some of the scripts and behaviors of the malware post execution should be things that developers are looking for. Okay. So that was Shai Hulud, huge incident, and as it was a worm, super interesting from a kind of a development standpoint, threat development standpoint. But there are actually even kind of bigger and potentially more weighty compromises that happened, and another one was the compromise of the package ESLint config prettier. This is a NPM package that was compromised back in July. Hugely, very widely used. Karlo, can you just talk just a little bit about this campaign? This preceded the Shai Hulud, but again, saw a really widely used NPM package registry compromised by malicious actors with malicious code inserted. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, basically, there were, as I mentioned, these two are not the only ones. There are 3 or 5 more, and more like they are the same concept. Basically, the attackers somehow compromise the popular package repository, either by compromising GitHub workflow actions or by simple phishing, which happened in the Quix developer case. They still publishing tokens, and what they then do, they simply publish a new malicious version to NPM usually without publishing anything malicious to GitHub repositories. And what you do then, people, as we said, have configured auto upgrading dependency. A tool like Dependabot does all that from you, and basically just by publishing a malicious version, you are starting your infection. You don't need to target explicitly final targets developers. You just need to push the malware, and everybody will hook onto it through dependency updating, automated dependency updating.
Right.
So,
And we're seeing the same types of behavior. So malicious post install script, credentials being targeted and exfiltrated, obviously, which fuels, downstream attacks and compromises. So pretty similar behaviors or malicious behaviors by this campaign. So we reported, I think, 46 repositories that were that had at least pulled the malicious version of the EastLink config prettier package, which is 10.1.7. One of those Microsoft project, actually. Do we know if this is the extent of the attack was just those 46 packages? And do we know if any of those companies, any of those developers or projects that pulled the malicious release actually were compromised?
Well,
yeah.
the basic thing, what we did found was by searching GitHub for hashes in PM log files, we found
Yep.
evidence that automated build environments use basically GitHub workflows running on pre-configured machines were installing exactly the malicious version of this package. As we
Right.
said, there were more packages involved into this campaign, so we basically took a look for the most popular one, but other ones were also abused in this campaign. We didn't go through searching entire for every package who was infected. As you said, there are popular targets having their build environments compromised. How GitHub workflows usually do: you take a clean version of your build environment, you build a new version of your software project, run tests on it, and after that it's cleaned up. What this malware does, it steals credentials. Basically, if you have some overpowered tokens declared in environment variables, this type of malware is designed to steal it from your build machine. And if you are using it, what most people are doing because they don't configure GitHub workflows properly, or they have or powered tokens, then these stolen tokens are reused for publishing something else. Basically, we just detected these 42 or however how many packages, as we said, but that doesn't mean that there aren't other let's say victims which we don't have
Right.
any evidence of compromise, because these are automated build environments and we can see PMP log files, but nobody says there weren't other projects using this dependency that
Are not public.
installed it or published a new version in the vulnerability period of,
Right.
let's say, 2 hours. So
Right.
these are just the ones we have confirmed. The impact is
Right.
probably bigger.
Really interesting. And Karlo, one of the issues you raised in your write-up of this was how, as you mentioned, automation tools like Dependabot, which really are designed to kind of streamline dependency updates in general. Traditionally, from a security standpoint, that would be a positive thing because you're getting, code updates and potentially, patches and so on. But these could be used, in this case, tools like that were being used really to promote the compromise and to spread the malware, spread the attack. So I guess what is our advice to developers who are relying on automation tools like Dependabot in this context? As you say here, if the concept of trusted publishers is no longer one that you can rely on, suddenly auto update mechanisms have a lot of risk associated with them. So what should developers be? How should they process that?
Yeah, as you said, for years, security community was promoting automated updates when new security fixes appear to narrow down the vulnerability period. Now we have open source patch repositories, in which you have many dependencies that practically every day some of them will get a new version released, but not all versions are security fixes. Some of them will introduce new features or something like that. Most of the time you won't need to install the new version immediately. You can have a grace period of few days or something like that. And even in the case that it is fixed for some hot security issue, today, with the last few months having so many compromise of popular packages, the risk from being compromised through exploiting a known vulnerability that has been fixed in a new version is likely to have smaller impact on your environment than automated update of a new malicious version. So people just
It's
need
got
to
malicious code in it. That's right.
yeah.
That's right.
So today,
right.
less if you ask me if previous year if bigger danger was from exploiting a known vulnerability that got fixed than from including malware from popular package repositories, the answer could probably be different. But this year, after everything this happening, as you said, the main message is there is no more trusted publishers. 5 of 10 top packages in npm, most popular packages, had incident in the last 2 months. So basically, you need to stop doing auto updating. First and simplest thing is give yourself a grace period, 5, 10 days, however you think it's enough for somebody from the security community to have a look at the new version of the packages. For the most popular packages, some of security companies will likely detect malware in first 5 or 10 days.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's really sort of like turning your world upside down. I think historically you look at a package like, EastLink Config Prettier that's got billions of downloads, more than 10,000 dependencies, and you're like, okay, this has got to be safe. So many eyes on this code, right? But what we're seeing is, no, you can't assume that anymore, right? And so, yeah, you're going to be suspicious of some, new package or low traffic package, but even the most popular, widely used packages potentially could harbor threats. Just a reminder to the audience, you got questions, use the Q&A feature. We'd love to hear them. Moving on, Lucija, you wrote a research post that was actually ended up being one of, I think, our most highly trafficked blog posts ever. This has got a huge amount of attention, including within the cryptocurrency community. And it was regarding a malicious well, it was npm packages, malicious, that abused Ethereum smart contracts to conceal malicious commands and install downloader malware. This was Color Tools v2. There are actually a couple packages. Talk a little bit about how you discovered this and what was going on with this attack.
So basically, Karlo actually discovered this. He found a package Color Tools v2, which is a very small package. Nothing was very special about it at the first glance. It had only like few files that were obfuscated and very easily deobfuscated. But what's interesting about the package was that it would contact smart contracts. There in smart contract, there was a C2 IP address, which package used to fetch second stage download. Usually, when we are looking at downloaders, they download from IP addresses that are already hard-coded inside of the package, but this was something we never seen before, because probably malicious actors abuse smart contracts because, those are sort of like open source APIs or little programs, so you can like write code inside. So of course, malicious actor used it to put malicious IP address there.
And for folks who aren't deep into the blockchain and cryptocurrency, just explain just briefly, like smart contracts, what are they? What function do they have?
So smart contracts are a small, kind of like small programs, and they can be used as open source APIs. So you can use them in your projects. You can write code there. And of course, we have seen for the first time they are abused even in malicious content.
And one of the really interesting things that that you discovered were these GitHub repositories that were part of this campaign, and linked to these, but really linked to these kind of phony maintainer accounts or sock puppet accounts. But there had been on the npm side, there wasn't a whole lot of effort made to dress up these packages and make them look legitimate. On the GitHub side, there was. And just talk about some of the techniques that the malicious actors had used to make these GitHub packages actually look very legitimate.
So basically, we thought these packages were interesting just because, they were abusing smart contracts, and we did tweet about it. But once we did a little bit more research, we always do when we're researching packages, we are searching for GitHub, we are searching repositories, we are searching other packages that could be compromised and with this kind of campaign and can be a part of this campaign. And we have found a couple of repositories that looked at the first glance legit. They had a big number of commits, that they had a couple of maintainers. People were watching that repositories. So repository looked legitimate. And we thought that we have found, supply chain attack, like some repository was compromised. But when I started to research a bit, I realized that most of those commits are fake. There was a few maintainers that were just like pumping numbers every day. They were adding license, deleting license, adding license, deleting license. And there was only one maintainer that pushed legitimate commits that would include these malicious NPM packages. All people who stargazed their repositories or who forked their repository were newly made accounts that they were probably made in automated way, just like all the commits were probably automated because they all look the same. And, because of the big number of commits and everything, I doubt someone was doing that by hand. So they really try to make GitHub repositories look believable. And we do believe that's the main actually campaign. But they just put malicious code inside npm package, because when you are looking at GitHub code, you don't see anything malicious. You have to look at every dependency, which, it's maybe tiresome, and not everyone will do that.
Right.
So that means that Color Tools and Name 2, which was included in those repositories, were malicious, and that those repositories were malicious.
But one red flag that you might have seen if you just kind of put your skeptic hat on was to, again, dig into those maintainers, look at their history, dig into some of those people, giving it high ratings, or where those contributions and updates are coming from and what those look like. And if you had kind of dug even a little bit deeper, you probably would have been like, whoa, okay, this is weird. Yeah.
Especially because those accounts, those repositories were targeting crypto community. They were some functionality about crypto community bots. So of course, because we know that a lot of crypto community is a target in last couple of months, I decided to research a bit more.
Right. Okay. On a related note, we're going Tar, you wrote in July about Ethcode, which was a VS Code extension. So talking about cryptocurrency here, VS Code extension for Ethereum that was compromised. Tell us a little bit about how how you came across this incident and what happened in this incident.
Yeah, so I came across ETH code basically during my daily task of screening VS Code packages. And what I noticed was that in one of the heuristics, there was basically a new package, this package, and it started using a obfuscation technique that was never seen before in this package. And then when I opened opened it and started looking at it deeper, I noticed that, okay, this trigger is getting triggered from the nodes modules folder, which is not the actual extension code, is actually the dependencies code. So then I dug a little bit more deeper and came across the GitHub page of this extension, and saw that actually on the, I think it was 17th of June, there was a pull request opened that tried to clean up the code base a little bit. It was all these little helpful changes that basically made the developer's life a little bit easier, since the extension itself was not maintained frequently in the last 10 months. And at first glance, there was nothing actually malicious in this pull request. And that is because actually the malicious code was not located again in the extension, it was located in the node modules. So when we took a look at what new dependencies this extension introduced, we saw that one of these dependencies actually was the culprit. It contained malicious downloader code, which later then downloaded and executed the next stages of the malware.
And this ethcode VS Code extension, like you said, it hadn't been updated in a few months. However, generally it had been updated fairly frequently. It definitely wasn't a like abandoned package by any means, but it had been a few months. And then this pull request got made, and as you said, some malicious lines introduced as part of a overall kind of cleanup, but did not get noticed by the maintainers, by the active maintainers, and apparently also not by GitHub Copilot as well. Is that because the threats were in code dependencies and not in the actual Ethcode source code?
Yeah, I would say that would be the reason. The GitHub Copilot only made like summarized changes of what this general PR does, and
Yeah.
it doesn't go through the nested dependencies and check what they do.
Was there any other suspicious, besides those two lines and those dependencies, anything else suspicious about the changes that were made by this contributor? It was Erez299, I think was the account name. Obfuscated code or anything else that should have set off red flags for the Ethcode maintainers?
Well, the biggest red flag here actually would be that the account, the Erez299, was actually only, I think, 2 weeks old before they opened the pull request. So that's an obvious throwaway account right there. The second red case, which is a little bit more difficult, but the maintainers should have checked the new dependencies. And if they did invest a little bit more time to dig through these new dependencies, they would see, okay, this new dependency has obfuscated code. Why would they do that? And they would have found what we found. Yeah.
Right. And that we've talked about this and written about this often, that obfuscated code, especially in an open source package, right, is a red flag. Why are you obfuscating code that is publicly
Exactly.
available? Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay, interesting. And what was the consequence of this? So obviously this was a campaign targeted at, Ethereum, blockchain and cryptocurrency. What's the takeaway here?
Well, at the time of our discovery, I think this package had 6,000 installs. And one important thing is that VS Code's Studio editor actually automatically updates all of its extensions by default each time you open the Studio. So as we don't know the exact number of affected victims, we can assume that the number is, let's be on the low side and say, I don't know, like maybe 10% people were definitely affected. And the second stage, as I forgot to say, was actually a rat Trojan. So that's basically it. Yeah.
Okay. And again, designed to steal sensitive information, exfiltrate it, or give malicious actors access to the systems running this, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it can give access to everything you do on the computers, and since this was tied to cryptocurrency, it's like
Crypto
malicious
wallets,
victims.
right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Right. There's money here, right? And this is why crypto is such a focus for malicious actors, because whether those are state-sponsored actors, and we know, particularly, North Korea, I think I read recently $2 billion in cryptocurrency thefts in the past year. So that's fueling this, and then of course there are just run-of-the-mill cyber criminals. Okay, so I mean, you mentioned kind of some of the I think one of the themes that we're seeing across all of these, NPM, VS Code, GitHub, and so on, is that there are some gaps in the protections and detection capabilities that some of these platforms provide, even as the risks are growing. Lucija, you wrote about the discovery of some malicious packages that actually exploited a loophole in VS Code that should have prevented them from being posted at all. Could you just talk a little bit about that campaign and what it involved?
So this loophole was discovered while we were looking at malicious packaging on VS Code. There were a couple of them that had the same name. So basically on NPM, PyPy, even on VS Code, documentation says that those packages, the name of the packages should be unique and they cannot repeat themselves. PyPy even has that if some package is malicious and is removed by PyPy, they completely ban the name. But on VS Code, we encountered a couple of packages, couple of extensions bearing the same name, which was very, weird and different. And we started to research it a bit more. As it turns out, on VS Code, there is a possibility to remove extension and to unpublish it. It's a similar thing, but they differ in some ways. So when you unpublish extension, you remove it from marketplace, but all statistics of downloads, installs, everything is kept. And you cannot reuse the name because it's still kind of present on marketplace in some way. And when you remove extension, it gets completely removed, statistics are removed, everything is removed. And in that case, the name can be reused. So there's a possibility of having two different publishers bearing, publishing the extension with the same name, basically.
And in it, go ahead. Yep.
No, thankfully, I just want to say in both cases, we encountered 2 times that extension name was reused. In both cases, the reused name was previously used for malicious extension. But the problem with this loophole is that, some big popular extension can get removed, author can remove it. And that name is then open for using. So, people maybe are using some extensions. That extension gets removed by author or something because he doesn't want to have that extension in the marketplace anymore. And then malicious actor then registers new extension by the same name, which is then, of course, malicious. And people can get infected just like this.
So in this case, I think the 2 packages, the original one was aban.shiba, Aban being the maintainer, Shiba the package, and then the update was aban-c Shiba. So again, Shiba's the package, same exact name as the removed package, different maintainer. And you could see how, that would be really easy to fool a developer who, is probably not super focused on, who owns this package, right? They're just going to assume that it's the same package because it's got the same name. Go ahead.
Yes, I want to say yes.
And
especially if the name of publishers are similar.
Yeah.
people just get, oh, the name is same, especially because on Marketplace, you, I mean, you can see the publisher name, you can see the name, but the biggest thing you see is just display name. So malicious actor can just fake display name with
Right.
some.
And what always surprises me is that platforms like NPM or VS Code or GitHub are not doing the types of heuristics, or anti-fraud monitoring that, is really common in other contexts, whether that's network security or, whatever, financial services. So that if you're seeing somebody being like, this is somebody creating with a maintainer name 90% similar to this previous maintainer name, and they're trying to publish a package with the same name. We should flag that. Or here's somebody who's publishing a package that looks very, very similar, 90% similar to this other widely used package, but they're a new maintainer and maybe they're copying the code or something. Like those types of behaviors that are for you all are red flags, but I mean, I know these are huge packages and there's tons of, these are huge platforms. There's tons of work going on. The vast majority of it legitimate, but do you think would it be possible to implement, and I throw this question out to all of you, heuristics like that might prevent some of these kind of low-hanging, imposter attacks or phishing attacks?
So I know that VS Code has some heuristics that monitors all publishers and name of big publishers. So basically, you can't make a publisher on VS Code that resembles Microsoft or that resembles Python or something like that. But I don't think, and they even mentioned that in their own documentation. They also have some heuristics, and they do scan all extensions before they are published on VS Code Marketplace. But I'm not sure if they do that with every extension. They do scan it, but I'm not sure whether they have a heuristics to flag similar publishers.
Right.
I'm not sure if they are doing that, but because they have for very popular names, probably is a possibility to do for all names.
From my
Karlo,
opinion,
Peter, what do you think?
Those platforms have limited resources that they can spend on security related stuff, and it's not to be expected for such big platforms to perform some of that security scanning, let's say, effectively. From my perspective, it is more important for those platform maintainers to focus on, let's say, empowering or making it mandatory to implement some security practices for developers and maintainers, like we said, two-factor authorization and similar stuff. I think it's more important to focus on that moment to prevent hijacking of maintainer accounts and packages than focusing on comparing packages, because there's too many of those on that platforms, and there are too few resources for those security individuals standing behind the security of all those platforms. So let them focus on what they can do good.
That's right. I mean, we think about Python package index or NPM. Oh, they're so widely used, they're so huge, hundreds of thousands of developers on them, but those are not revenue. Those are not sources of revenue for those platforms, right? There's this economic concept of like the tragedy of the commons, right? And I think that's kind of what we're seeing here, which is, yes, very widely used, but also, Karlo, as you said, very resource constrained in the way that a bank trying to prevent credit card fraud, or a credit card company trying to prevent credit card fraud, is not resource constrained. So yeah, that's kind of what we're seeing is, they don't have tremendous resources to do that type of monitoring and security. So given that, it kind of falls more on the development organization and individual developers to look out for their own security. What are some of the recommendations that we have based on the attacks we've been talking about? Oh, and I would throw out, we got about 10 minutes left. So if you got questions, Karlo, Lucija, Petar, happy to take them, throw them into the Q&A, and we'll answer them. let's just go through some of these recommendations. So Karlo, start with you, kind of securing the open source pipeline. What are we referring to there?
Yeah, basically, most of organizations have automated development pipelines from code to publishing and testing, and you want to put security restraints or on several steps in that pipeline. Most important one being that you likely don't include a malicious dependency, third-party dependency into your code base or generally into your development environment, either being it into the code base or through a malicious extension for your IDE. And the second place is that you don't ship malware in your release artifacts. So those are basically two biggest spots to secure your development pipeline. So as you said, in case of NPM and similar package repository, disable auto updating of dependencies and perform security vetting of all dependencies.
Right.
There is no more trusted publisher that doesn't exist.
Right. And on that validate trust, we've talked about that. Lucija, as you said, really taking a close look at those maintainers and validating that they are legitimate, that they've got, you know, a track record, that these aren't just sock puppet accounts, and other things that we can do around maintainer accounts and strengthening access to those. MFA is a great example, just like with any other account you own, right? Multi-factor authentication. Lucija, your thoughts on that?
So basically, as Carlos said, there is no trusted publisher because they can also get compromised. But there should be a way you can know that the publisher is legitimate. So there is no instances of a newly account publishing some package that you maybe include in your cycle. If you notice some account is new, it's more likely that they would publish something malicious than some publisher that it's maybe 2-3 years old.
Right. And on the next one, strength and detection, that's a happy place here for us at ReversingLabs, because this is kind of what we help people do. But talk just a little bit, Karlo or Lucija or Petar, on the binary analysis, binary scanning. How can that help you? And how can you integrate that into your development process to kind of prevent or reduce exposure to attacks like these?
So basically, release artifacts usually aren't in scripted type. They are some type of binary archive, and you need to, let's say, unpack them to view the source files present inside them. And that's a hard task for most of developers. They don't have knowledge on resources, and our advice is to use dedicated third-party tools, either commercial or free off the shelf, anything you can find to help you perform security vetting of black box packages you don't have, for which you don't have knowledge or skills to security vet them. So give that task to someone who knows that and who does it daily. They can guarantee that malware won't slip, but it's higher capability that they will find it than you if you are not skilled.
Right. And Petar, we talk about dependency hygiene. What are your thoughts on, for developers, maybe just how they should be rethinking, reviews and verification of the code dependencies they've got?
Well, developers should review each new dependency they plan to add. They should not, as Carlos said, they should not automatically update everything straight away if it's not needed, if it's not like some kind of a vulnerability fix. They should have a grace period of at least like a couple of days. And that's pretty much it, I think.
Yeah. And that's
version
not
pinning,
just,
if I can
yeah,
say, do perform version pinning if possible. That's a strong tool. Every platform has it, and don't put that carrot and give me the latest version. Use version pinning.
So version pinning would mean you are not just automatically using the latest and greatest, right? That you,
Yeah.
right,
Pin it
right,
to the specific version
right,
of the
right.
dependency.
And then as a new version comes out, I mean, it's a little bit more work from the developer standpoint, right? Because you've got to follow the latest versions of those dependencies and make sure that you're changing and updating to the latest ones, right? Right.
You can add PR suggestions for updating, but don't perform automated updates before. Don't merge them before you wet them.
Okay. And Petar, just expanding on what you said, that wouldn't just be for new dependencies that are, the result of pull requests. It would also be for your existing dependencies, right? Because as we've seen, even legitimate packages that are code dependencies for use could be compromised, and that could impact you. So
Yeah, exactly.
right. Okay. One of the tools actually that we offer to you if you're concerned about some of the risks that are out there is SpectraAssure Community, and this is a free web-based service that ReversingLabs offers. It gives developers access to our threat intelligence and security assessments of open source packages. Karlo, I'll throw it to you. Just tell the folks on the line a little bit about Secure.Software, the SpectraAssure community, how it works, what they can find there, what platforms we cover, and so on.
Yeah, basically for all of these 6 ecosystems you can see in the screenshot, NPM, PyPI, RubyGems, NuGet, VS Code, and PowerShell Gallery. You can check for the quality and security of packages published in these ecosystems. We regularly update them with the new packages, new versions of other packages, and we give, let's say, security scores indicating in several categories what issues have been detected in those packages and what are the risks related with using them. For most of you, the biggest related to these recent attacks, the biggest importance would be on whether it contains malware or some suspicious behaviors. So basically, in the next screenshot, which I will show you how an exemplary report for some of the packages look.
There we go. Sorry about that. Okay. Yeah. So this is a screenshot, or this is a view of the Color Tools v2. That was the malicious package we discussed earlier. And Lucija, what are we seeing here?
So basically for any package, particularly this one, you can see if there were some incidents for this particular version, who reported it, when, but also in general for usually developers are using SpectraAssure, they can see some issues, behaviors, what the package does, maybe some vulnerabilities, so they can do security assessments. And they can also search packages through version. They can see what version was clean, what was maybe malware, what version was vulnerable, and so on. And they can help themselves and very easily see whether it's safe to use the package or not.
Okay. And Michael asked, is there an API for SpectraAssure?
Well, at the moment not, but it's coming like the dragons. It's coming. It will come.
Okay. It's going to be there soon. It's going to be there
Yeah.
soon. Okay. So thanks for the question, Michael. Okay. So we're just about out of time, but I wanted to let you all know before we wrap up, we got 2 more Reversing Labs webinars that you don't want to miss. Sorry, why do I keep doing this? Wow, this is really something. One sec, sorry. So we've got OSS in the hot seat that is coming up. Sorry, one sec. And Anatomy of Software Supply Chain Attacks, that is October 20th, and OSS in the hot seat. And you can register for those at ReversingLabs/webinar/webinar lineup. And I wanted to just thank all of our guests today and for coming in, for talking to us, and really great conversation. And obviously, as we said before, if when the survey comes up after we close, please let us know what you thought about the webinar, and we will see you again in Q4 for another threat research roundup. And all things stay the same. We're probably going to have some more interesting campaigns to talk about. So thank you so much. Karlo, Lucija, Petar, thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you for having us.
No problem. Talk to you later.